Hi all, I'll be demoing Radar, which is a proactive decision support system that uses automated AI planning to help support a commander. And in our example, the commander is actually trying to extinguish a big fire at BYENG. He can select goals from this panel, and once he updates a goal, we populate the landmarks. So I have already started at an initial state, and as you can see, to extinguish big fire at BYENG, we surely need to deploy big engines at BYENG. So landmarks are essentially those predicates which you will have to ensure that will have to be true at some point of time in any plan that you take from your initial state to achieve your goal. So let's say if I remove big fire engines, that is, your initial state does not have a resource which is a big fire engine. It does not have a big fire engine at Mesa Fire, PX Fire, or Scots Fire. Let's say it also doesn't have it here. In this case, you have reached an initial state from which there is no plan to actually solve it. It also shows here. So Radar actually returns you that, and it says that you have an invalid initial state from which you cannot achieve this goal. And if you hover over this, it tells you that why don't you get big engines at admin fire. Obviously you can have preferences of getting it at other places, but we'll just take Radar's suggestion and we will get a big engine at admin fire. Now once you have this, you can you can go about making a plan to achieve this goal. In this plan, I have already added two actions in which I have asked to deploy big fire engines from admin fire to BYENG and then extinguish the big fire at BYENG. Now this seems a reasonable plan, but there might be other things in the domain that I have forgotten or have not taken care of. So let's ask for a validation. Now as I do a validation, it shows that this plan is not going to be valid. Now if you want to know why, we hover over this exclamation mark and it says that you have to alert the fire chief at admin fire to actually deploy big fire engines. So let's just go ahead and add this action. So I want to essentially alert fire chief at admin fire, which is this action, and I add it. Now this UI is actually drag and drop and you can schedule your actions accordingly, but for this case I will just add it at the top, and now I'll ask for validation. So this should now return me no errors. So this partial plan seems to be valid. In case you're not sure what to do, so let's just go back to the previous state we had, and you're not sure how to resolve this, you can just ask the system to fix your plan, and it suggests a set of actions. Obviously it does suggest a few more actions because it thinks that these are the actions you will need on your route to an optimal plan with your set of observations, but you could just cancel these out and you can again ask for a validate. This should essentially return the same thing that you saw, which I did manually by adding the action. Now let's go forward and ask for a suggestion from the system to actually solve for this goal from the state that I am in with the three actions that I have already done. So if you ask for a suggestion, the system will provide you with this list. So these are the three actions which are treated as the observations and a PR2 domain is created, and then you use an optimal planner that given the set of observations, what are the other actions you can do to achieve the goal. So this is what you have here. Now the question is, you might think that during the outbreak of a fire, it is natural for the fire chief admin to know that there has been a fire outbreak, and henceforth you do not need to alert the fire chief admin. Also, there's another case in which you feel that even for deploying rescuers, the fire chief admin does not need to be alerted at whichever station they are located in. So this plan seems kind of inexplicable to you because you're not sure why these actions need to be done before this. So there might be other changes in the plans that are also there, but and you're not sure why this is. So you can ask Radar to actually explain his plan. That why did you suggest this plan? I don't think these are inexplicable actions. So in that case, what Radar does, it goes to the backend. It sees what you believe is the domain model, what it thinks it is the domain model, and tries to find a minimum number of changes that it needs to tell you to say why this plan is an actual plan that it's suggested. So this takes a little bit of time, so we'll just wait. To know how we actually do this, you can read about this in our paper on arXiv. once it actually generates these minimum number of differences between the domain model of the human and the robot, given the context of this plan, it actually sends it out. So it says that, hey, you need to have big engines. So deploying big engines has to have a precondition alerted from. That is what the domain model of the world is, which you have not, which you are feeling is inexplicable to you. And also deploying rescuers needs to have an alerted from, which you think it does not, but it is actually the case. So let's say you say that, hey, I don't accept this. I don't think to deploy big engines you need an alerting, because I think the fire chief should know. But okay, I can agree that since rescuers are people, you might need to alert the fire chief admin before asking for a set of people, because he needs to have that manpower. So, and you say update models. So the model is updated. Let's now say you wanted this guy to suggest a plan. Okay, so let's just delete this, because now I believe that it shouldn't be needed, and you ask for a suggestion. Now, as you can see that in this suggestion, that action is not required anymore, because in this case, let's do one more thing. Let's also delete the alerting of the fire chief and then ask for a suggestion. If you might see that the fire chief at Mesa Fire still needs to be alerted, because deploying rescuers needs an alerting of the fire chief, whereas in the case of deploying of big engines, you have updated your model to say, you have updated Radar's model to say that you do not need to alert, so you don't need to alert.